Live at Onigashima! I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Anthony, and today we're doing chapter 1102, The Life of Kuma. And let me just say, this was a perfect wrap up for the flashback. It was.
I loved everything about it. It was so good.
And real quick, I know the cover stories like largely don't matter because they're cover requests and stuff now, but this one's funny. I like.
To me, I like it because it adds to just like Bonnie's adventure. Like we get to see the other parts of the adventure, the important parts. But this is like, while she was on an island waiting for the log post to reconnect to a different island, she was having eating contests with wolves.
Yeah, I think it works out. But yeah, it got right into it. Picked up where we left off. But this is like the definitive, I think, final flashback chapter. We see kind of Bonnie's escapades around after she sets off. And we see that Kuma is keeping tabs on her, like still she can't see him and she's kind of looking for Kuma, but he's being a good father still. He's still like, getting
But to
see
me,
her
that's the most tragic thing is she got so close so many times and was like literally just a hair away. And he was like, sorry, can't see you, and just had to leave. Like, you see it in that first island they visit when they get to Sabaody. He's, like, literally looking at her through the window. He's, like, less than 10 feet away from her this whole time.
I know.
And she just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
And then the next time she sees him, he's a mindless, like, cyborg on Marineford battlefield. And she's just watching him kill, like, innocent people. Well, no, I guess not innocent, but, like, just kill people.
That's true.
Like, she had
Yeah,
never
that
seen this side of
definitely recontextualizes that whole scene when Bonnie's, like, crying. Because it's not just that she was, like, oh, like that was my dad and they did whatever. Like she's been looking for him like this whole time, and it ended in Sabaody where we see Kuma all of a sudden. We see just how he connected with the Straw Hats. I think this chapter did a really good job at like giving us context for everything that we had questions for before, and like a lot of it was we kind of saw it coming, but it's really nice to see like the whole story play out from the time Luffy gets his first bounty all the way the Thriller Bark scene, knowing that Kuma was like testing them.
And just to pause on that Thriller Bark scene and to power scale a little bit, one of my favorite things about this chapter is that little extra thought bubble we get from Kuma, where he's making Zoro take the pain and he says, this damage might be enough to even knock me out. And this is Akuma at full strength. And this is a Zoro that was already fighting all day, also taking Luffy's pain, and it's pre-time skip Zoro. Like, the endurance feat that Zoro has based on this, because we know Kuma can take a lot. Like, we've seen him take a lot.
I mean, he got a hole punch in his head by Akainu.
Yeah. So, I think this is just a nod up to Zoro. Like, my GOAT is still performing.
I mean, yeah, he definitely... I don't know if this would like put him over Akuma or anything, because he did get popped in Sabaody like the very next time that they saw each other. But
pre-time skip.
You think Zoro would beat Kuma post-time skip?
Yeah, of course I do. Easily.
We'll save that for the top 30. But then we get into Sabaody and we recontextualize the whole scene where Kuma pops them all away, and we get to see his inner monologue where he's like, oh, he can't say anything to Luffy because he can't like give it away to Kizaru or anything. Like he can't give away his actual inner thoughts, but
like to them he just has to make it look like he's actually like killing them and sending them off, because they don't really know better.
Yeah, exactly. So he believes in them. He's like, one day they'll save the world. He says it to Vegapunk later. One thing about the whole Vegapunk scene, I want to talk about him talking to Saturn. We know that Kuma now in present time, he got rescued by the Revolutionary Army, and then he dipped to go to probably the Egghead, right? Like that's what we think. And it's probably because of whatever Vegapunk programmed in him right here. Because even though Saturn is like, don't do that, nah, you gotta like totally erase him. And Vegapunk's like, no, if you just let me test it. And he's like, no, they're turning him off. Like, he's done. I think that Vegapunk did keep in the switch, because one big thing that this whole arc has been kind of like like showing us, like from the very beginning, they were like, it's impossible to erase somebody's individuality, like even if you want to, like even with the
Yeah, we saw that at the beginning of Egghead with like the monsters, like the animal creatures that he was creating. It's like, hey, look, even though I can rewrite their programming, they still act on instinct like monsters and stuff. The only thing is, I don't necessarily know if Vegapunk left in like that kind of switch, because Saturn said it in this chapter. It's like, hey, if you do anything fishy, like I'm gonna know. But I think he did do something more subtle, so something similar to this with this programming.
Right.
And I think it's probably something in relation to protecting Bonnie. And now that she's in trouble, I think that's why it's triggering, and he's running away from the Revolutionary Army to go to Egghead.
Right.
Like, I think it's all, like, everyone knows, like, Kuma's on his way over here. Like, where else would he be going to?
He has to, yeah. I think that this is a really good end. I think this is, like, probably my favorite flashback in One Piece. Because it recontextualized a lot of things. It hit home the theme of the arc. Gave us the backstory to a character that we were wondering about forever, and just like really consistent writing all around. Like, I love being able to open up the world while also, like, you know, furthering the idea of like Nika and like what the eventual thing that Luffy is gonna do, like how Luffy ties into all this, I think is really interesting. Personally, I think this is like one of the best written flashbacks, if not the best written flashback in One Piece.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. Still like the Robin one a lot. I have to go back and read that one, but this is definitely top two. It's between those two for me.
Yeah, same.
But and one of the pages I think that really helped hit it home hard is that one towards the end where you see Kuma running through his life and running away from all the hardships, still meeting people that care about him, showing him all the people that he's helped out over the years. And even when he thought he was stumbling after losing Ginny, there was something there to kind of keep him going, and that was Bonnie.
Yeah, it was so cute. This is like a tearjerker.
And
that panel
on top of
really...
that, with this page, I didn't notice this at first, but I saw it pointed out that all the panels of Kuma running, if you like look at them back to back, it's like the same positions as the Nika dance he was doing before.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I think that it's cool that okay, so here's one thing I want to say about that, is that this really, really drives home for me that Bonnie's joining the crew. I think Bonnie's gonna be the last crew member, you know, and round out like the 10. If Vivi jumps on too, that would be fucking awesome. But like, you know, she has an excuse. You know, she has to run a country at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Bonnie doesn't have anywhere to go, and honestly, I don't want her going back with the Revolutionary Army at this point. I want her with the Straw Hats.
And I don't think it makes sense for her to go with the Revolutionary Armies, because her connection to them is Kuma, but that was Kuma joining them to help the world, where Bonnie's just trying to live like a carefree life. The only thing that I don't know about for Bonnie joining the crew right now, because I do think it's gonna happen, but everyone on the crew has a dream, and right now Bonnie's dream was just to, one, see Nika, which if she sees Luffy here, then that's that. Maybe that becomes her dream, following Nika.
Well,
but the other thing was just finding her dad. So that's the only thing that
well,
would,
here's the thing is that there's one. You're right, but that's her goals now. But since we got this whole backstory, this is a perfect time for Bonnie to get Kuma's inherited will. So if his will was to see Nika liberate the world, and help him in doing so, then I think Bonnie's goal at this point, because we see it in this chapter at the beginning too, when she's like, you know, pillage all the villages and like take everything you can unless they're nice, you know, like
it's a very loose way of being a pirate, kind of like Luffy, right? Like, yeah, he claims he's a pirate, but overall, if like you don't hurt him or harm him, like he's gonna do good for you and be your friend. And that's kind of how it feels with Bonnie. She has the same type of attitude. It's like, yeah, we're quote-unquote pirates by the world government eye, but I'm only hurting people that kind of try to get in my way and try to stop me from doing things that are relatively harmless. Right. Maybe not in Luffy's case, but yes, in Bonnie's case.
Right. Speaking of Bonnie a little bit more, one thing that I think we kind of have to dispel at this point, and it'll be interesting because I feel like a lot of people have forgotten this, but we brought it up a lot like during the course of this flashback, is I don't really think Bonnie's a clone anymore. Like, she's probably
there's no way.
Yeah. Like, but do you think that there is gonna be another clone besides Stussy, because she was the first successful clone, or is that just gonna tie into the Seraphim and that's gonna be that?
Well, I mean, I still think Weevil's a clone, for instance. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I still think there could be other things that use clone technology that we just haven't seen yet. Maybe somehow he clones the admirals. Maybe we get Kizaru clones because he works so close with them. Maybe we get Gorosei, but I doubt that because I don't think they would want their DNA used like that
I don't
at
know if we're
all.
getting Kizaru clones because we already got all the Pacifista that kind of have his
Pacifista.
power already,
Yeah,
you know.
that's true. But
But
I do think it's gonna come into play. I just don't necessarily know if it'll come into play in this arc.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, we'll see that soon because Bonnie. So we're back. We're out of the flashback pretty much, or I guess we're like like halfway out of the
No, no, no.
flashback
So
because
we're out of the flashback. You can see it in this last page here. It's fading from like that black background to like the gray background.
yeah,
where
but
it's
this is like
kind of a flashback.
it's like this is 2 minutes
So
ago.
maybe, well, it was like yesterday in their time.
I guess
but like,
so. Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna say. Maybe it goes from this to showing the events of that night on Egghead that we skipped over before.
right.
But I
Okay.
don't really see that happening unless there's something important that's going to happen inside
Well, it might
of
be
that.
the rest of it might be Bonnie kind of coming to terms and then flipping, her beliefs as to like who needs to be punished and everything. Like while we see all the other Seraphim fighting, and then it'll all lead up to the point where like she's being held, she's about to die by Saturn, and then maybe Luffy saves her or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Nika saves
I
her. at the
definitely
end.
think Luffy's about to get back up when we cut back to real time and be the sun god Nika that she's been looking
She
for
needs
this
to
whole
see
time
him.
and
Yeah.
liberate her. I definitely see that's where
even
it's
if
going.
Kuma, like if Kuma shows up and then does everything, like I think that she needs to see Luffy Nika at this point. Like,
Or the other option, instead of Luffy getting up and beating him, what if Caribou shows that he's the sun god Nika and saves Bonnie?
Caribou comes and he's like, "Listen," and then we get a cut back to like the rest of the Gorosei, and they're like, there was a second fruit. Like,
And then that pirate Shanks was talking about to the Gorosei is actually Caribou this whole time.
yeah, he's actually the mud fruit or the swamp fruit is actually the Nika fruit. Well, that's.
But yeah, overall,
You know.
fantastic chapter. Probably my favorite of the year.
I think so. Yeah,
Like,
it
I'd have
just
to go
wrapped
through
up
all
so
of them to see,
perfect.
but there's like this is what you expect from One Piece backstories. This
It
is like
felt,
golden.
and I know just as an ending note here, like I think a lot of different. I've seen a lot of videos saying this and a lot of different people saying this, but like this is one of the first times in all of post time skip that there were this hard of emotions being hit. Like I can't really tell you another post time skip moment that like really was this perfect.
So reading it weekly, I wouldn't say it was this perfect. The other ones I would compare to is Sanji's backstory was hitting pretty hard at the time. I thought that one was
Yeah.
really good, but it didn't have as much depth as this one.
Right.
I think this one went into a lot more detail and had a lot more of the different character interactions that
It was
made you
also
feel
more
those
of just like a
emotions.
news story because Sanji, like, we
That
got half
also.
of his story before and then you get half of his story later. So it's like,
Exactly. And then the other one was Law, who I would say is kind of comparable. Just again, I feel like the circumstances weren't as closely related to our like protagonists.
right, yeah.
So it wasn't hitting as hard to home. Where like we know the direct effects of what Kuma was doing. Like we see it in this chapter, him going through and interacting with the Straw Hats in different ways. And I think that's what also helps it hit closer to home.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this is a good time to let you guys know that unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say it. There's a break next week.
Sadly, there's a break next week, but I will say it's an expected break. We got the holiday season. We always get a lot of breaks during this time. Probably gonna go into maybe one more chapter before the end of the year, but I don't think so.
This is probably the last
big
chapter of
drought.
the year.
But in the meantime, we're getting ready for our top 30 strongest list. So stay tuned for
Oh
some
my
of
god!
those.
And our lists are gonna be pretty different. We were talking about it before this stream. Like it's gonna be we have some out there takes. So we'll let you guys in on that soon before the end of the year. Hopefully that'll drop maybe right after. But it'll be a 2023. So pretty much like from this point backwards. Is what we're kind of ranking on. We got we'll lay out all the rules in that video, but stay tuned for that.
And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as usual, fight us in the comments.
Fight us in the comments, y'all. You know how it is. You know what to do. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.